Furious Driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the Furious fleet and for yours with 10% off using code FD10. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and I'm in a car which, if it wasn't for the fact it was automatic, I would be driving home in right now because this is absolutely fantastic. Yes, this is a Subaru Justy all-wheel drive. Oh my goodness, yes. And if you like reviews of interesting, unusual, different cars, then please hit like and subscribe and watch the rest of the fascinating array of automotive extravaganza before your very eyes. There's lots of reviews is what I'm trying to say. Incidentally, if I don't buy this car, you can. It's for sale at Stone Cold Classics. Check the link in the description below. So thanks to the guys there for letting me take it out on this very changeable weather day. So the Subaru Justy, it's one of those cars that kind of lives in myth because although it's only a small compact car, the fact that back in the 80s and the 90s you could have one of these things with all-wheel drive, and it was written down the side in giant writing, all-wheel drive. That made it kind of the stuff of legend. Everyone wanted an all-wheel drive compact car or all-wheel drive anything. That was really exotic back then. It's no surprise really that Subaru is the farmer's favourite because they make cars that are sturdy and all-wheel drive and go anywhere and keep on going and going. And the original Justy was just that. From 1984 to 1994, the first generation Justy was built in-house by Subaru, and it was quite an interesting little thing. They took a car called the Rex, a K car, and they kind of cut it lengthways and widthways and stretched it until it was a bit bigger. They even used some of the original pressings, like the original doors from the Rex were used in the new Justy. And it was an interesting thing for Japanese buyers because it was now too big for K-car regulations, but it was still sub 1000cc, so they got great tax breaks on it. It was a popular car. Really don't see them very much anymore. Now rolling on to 1994, the second generation of Justy, they no longer built them in-house. They started moving to a model where they would buy in or have a car built for them and rebadged, and they'd just license something different. And that would be a second generation Suzuki Swift built in Hungary and wearing a slightly different badge, but identical virtually in every other way. It's a European car wearing a Japanese badge. But that's not a bad thing because the Suzuki Swift is a fantastic car, and when they built that Hungarian factory, they actually took all the workforce over to Japan and trained them to think and act and work like the Japanese workforce to build to the same quality as their Japanese counterparts. So, therefore, Subaru was still getting their fabulous quality and an interesting car. This though is a Mark 1.5, a late Series 1 facelift. These ran right up to 94, 95 depending on the market and are virtually the same size as the original, although visually they appear much bigger thanks to the restyled bumpers and lights. Curiously though, they do look very similar to the Mark 1 Suzuki Swift, almost as if they've been planning on rebadging the rival cars right from the very beginning. Its boxy design, square edges and graphics all over the car do give it a very strong 1980s vibe, which is very much in demand these days. It's come back into style with a vengeance, and this car does look so good. Now to drive this thing you had the choice of two gearboxes. You had a manual 5-speed, which I can tell you is absolutely lovely. Or you could have this option here, which as it says on the top of the gear shift is the ECVT, electronically continuously variable transmission. Which means it's basically a CVT, I think, isn't it? Back when they first released this, they did have a little bit of a problem producing them because they couldn't get the steel for the bands enough back in the 80s. But then they did ramp up production later on as it became more available. It's only a 1.2, this is a 1.2 GLI spec. But even with an automatic and a 1.2, it still feels remarkably peppy. It's a car you just feel quite happy hustling along. It's a little bit of a roll in the bodywork, but then it's a 90s car, it's always going to have roll in the bodywork. Well, the body, not the bodywork. But it just feels so sure-footed. That all-wheel drive system gives you that sense of confidence that no matter what the world throws at you, you're going to be able to take it on and come out on top, and the right way up. Steering's light, there's no judder, it's very accurate, it doesn't take a lot of input to get the car swerving around. And the gearbox is, well, being a CVT, you don't really feel the changes because there aren't really any changes. It just slides from one almost ratio to the next almost ratio. Now I was going to say this car feels astonishingly like a new car. There's a reason for that. It's only got 18,000 miles on it, and so it looks and feels like a new car because it basically is. I'm not quite sure how it could possibly have been used so little because it's such a nice thing to be in. And there was a funny thing that happened in the middle of the 1990s, that cars had been sort of progressing and evolving slowly and slowly, and then suddenly there was a leap, and it happened in all different directions. The Mk1 Punto was a real example of this, and then things like the Swift were another from the other end of the world. You'll notice we've got the right-hand indicator stalk just here. But all of a sudden, cars were just so grown up. Even compacts like this were just so composed at speed, and they could handle back lanes, B roads. They just grew up. Cars became really good in the 90s, and this is a really good example of it. This car is 30 years old pretty much, and it drives like new for one thing, but the way it's so composed, it's so happy. Yeah, its road manners really are impeccable. It's smooth and it's quiet. Just remember the indicators on the right, and you could be driving anything from the last 10 years. It's remarkable. And of course, being a car of the 90s though, it's tiny. You could park it under your stairs in the shoe cupboard. It's brilliant. And of course, with its slightly softer suspension and its tall tyres, even rubbish roads like this, you just cruise over. It's brilliant. Now, looking around the interior of the Justy, it's like jumping sort of into the 1980s with the layout and things. This kind of very square, angular design and the dropping down console in the middle bit. They even got a radio cassette with a removable front part, which is a cool thing to have. Notably though, we have got an exemplary T-shelf area. That will stop your sausage rolls mingling with your fondant fancies, always very important. Checking out the door card, that's always a good place to start to get a feel for a car. We've got a lot of padded elephant hide, not hard, but padded elephant hide with this fabulous 90s fabric. Oh, I love a 90s fabric so much. They were so exuberant, so different and fun. They just stood out. This is bright blue with dabs of pink and green and red across the black. It's amazing. Then of course you've got the very Japanese clunky little door handle and locking mechanism. Manual windows though, that's quite funny. Little door pull, large but narrow door pockets, and this is something you won't find in many places. This little sticker that's so 1960s Land Rover-ish. When the buzzer blow and the clutch temp warning lamp blink on and off, avoid hard driving. That is very Japanese, that layout and the wording. And this one is changeovers, 4-wheel drive to 2-wheel drive. Release accelerator and press selector switch. Push the selector switch while driving straight. Where is the selector switch? I must find that in a second. And of course we do have an adjustable wing mirror, or door mirror, but it's mechanical, manual, not electronic. Curious. Now, jumping back into the interior of the car, let's have a quick shifty at the driver's instrument binnacle. It does feel, again, quite 1980s-ish in its own funny sort of way. Speedometer on the left, rev counter on the right, fuel and water temperatures and a bunch of warning lights, all pretty standard stuff, except as well as the ECVT readout, which gives you a little indicator telling you which gear you're in, we've got the 4-wheel drive alert to tell you if you're 4-wheel driving, which is not something you find in many cars. I do like that quite a lot. This is very, very angular and square. We've got our hazard light switch on the left-hand side, rear screen heater, fogs on the other side, coin tray down below because you need a coin tray, it's the law. And this is a curious little button, position. I believe this is parking lights. You may be able to make that out, but that is parking lights. Back in the car, to say, very 1980s feel to it, very square, very angular. Got a couple of oblong air vents here in the middle of the dashboard. We've got our very standard 80s, 90s Japanese heating and ventilation controls and a digital clock. Check out that glowing green joy just there. Above the lighter socket, the radio, big ashtray, decent sized glove box, and the speakers, which are actually in the corners of the lower dash, which is quite curious. And you notice we haven't got a centre console down here. It just goes straight into our gear shift surround and our handbrake. We do have more coin holders though. How many coins were they expecting us to be carrying back in those days? And a large area big enough for 2 paperback books. And I cannot put enough emphasis on this absolutely amazing fabric. It is just a joy to look at. It's, I don't know, it feels like it should be on the packaging for a kid's toy dinosaur, and it's the big slashes from Jurassic Park or something. I love it, it's brilliant. Clambering into the back, we have got 3 seat belts. We've got lots of fantastic fabric and not a lot else. It's a little bit tight. The front seat's pushed away back, so it's kind of tight in here. We have though got another little ashtray though, so we are fully equipped for any eventuality. But curiously, we've got body colour metal on show on these back doors. Now at the back of the Justy, we have though got a rear screen wiper, which is very cool indeed. Lifting this up, and you'll notice this is from Lancaster Sevenoaks, so it's local to me. We've got Justy 4-wheel drive ECVT 1.2 GLI and a big plastic trim area here and a nice chunky handle to open it with. On the Swift, I noticed that the metalwork kind of came all the way across, and so loading and unloading things was quite tricky. Getting a washing machine into a Swift is going to be a no-go. This though is potentially washing machine friendly. Another thing is the lights. Well, these look a bit like an early Civic, curiously, and you've got the big fog light moulded in down here for the UK market. Under the floor in the boot, we have got full-size spare wheel. I say full-size, it's a 13-inch, so even full-size is kind of on the dinky side, really. And we do have a 50-50 folding rear seat. I'm going to call that a win, and weirdly, we've got small pockets for putting things beside the load space cover. I'm not sure what you'd want to carry in these areas just here. Maybe for putting a cup of tea if you're having a picnic at the boot. I don't know. This Subaru Justy all-wheel drive, fabulous thing. I love it. If you love it as well, head over to Stone Cold Classics website because someone's going to snap this thing up in no time. It's brilliant. And thanks for watching, and join me again next time driving something completely different.